Rock Salt MUZKAST Experience. Aaron, Dave, and no Patrick right now. No, he's busy rehearsing or something like that.
Yeah.
That's okay. We got to fill in.
Yeah.
We got 13 minutes.
Yes.
All the way from Tulsa, Oklahoma.
Wow, the studio audience.
Yeah, we pack him into my living room here, Jamie.
Hey, I'll take him how I can get him. Pack him in the living room. Piped audio. It's okay.
Yeah,
13 minutes. Interesting name.
And by the way, I've only got 12 minutes to interview. So,
well, I'll talk fast.
Oh yeah, but how did that name come about?
Well, number one, that's the exact reason why we named our band 13 Minutes, just so you'll ask that question. But pretty simple. It sparks conversation. We were sitting around. Funny story is we transitioned into this band. We had a vocalist and he departed, ran with the name. So here we are rebranding, and we're like, we don't want to name it anything cheesy, but we want to have something that's spiritually sound as well as strikes up conversation. So me and our former vocalist, Michael, we were personal trainers at points in our life. And so definitely a fitness element. And I read fitness stuff like it's a good literature. So we started talking about in the physical fitness world that the person to be deemed physically fit should work out 90 minutes a week. And I don't even remember how we got on that conversation, but we broke it down and it came out to literally 13 minutes a day of exercise to become physically fit, just baseline. And like, well, God is the God of physical. So wonder if that applies to the spiritual as well. And so we made a pact with one another at that point to challenge one another, no matter what's going on in life, to take care of our spiritual health, even 13 minutes a day. And so that's really the baseline aspect of how the name came about. So it was a challenge within the band to keep ourselves spiritually fit. There really were no excuses to not get in the word, get in prayer, things of that nature. At 13 minutes a day, you really are without excuse. As we started studying a little bit more, though, we found out some really neat nuances about 13 minutes. Every 13 minutes, someone in America commits suicide. Every 13 minutes, a woman is diagnosed with breast cancer. It takes 13 minutes from the time that a tornado alarm sounds to get to shelter before the tornado strikes. And other things, a little bit more lighthearted, it takes 13 minutes to cook an omelet. So no matter where people are in terms of faith or lack thereof, there's always something that we can talk about when they say, hey, what's 13 minutes mean?
Well, I think I'm at the omelet stage of faith, guys.
Omelets are good. Can be a spiritual experience.
Hey, I love a good chili cheese omelet. I know that's probably a West Coast thing, but yeah.
But yeah, that's omelets. The short story of it. So I'm a bacon cheese guy myself.
Okay. Nothing wrong with that. The guys, you're on Rottweiler Records. I want to get this out of the way first because I truly feel this way. I feel like I'm a pseudo friend of Rottweiler Records. Not that I've ever met them or anything like that, but we've talked to bands like yourself and Dispraised, and it's like the friend that you never met, but they're just part of the right. Oh, you got to meet Dave. He's such a cool guy. That's Rottweiler Records for me.
I would agree with that.
They seem like such cool people over there. And from what I was reading, they helped you, through your tough times. Mm-hmm. They didn't just, and I want to say this, that I was listening to your music and watching your videos before the interview today. And it's like 13 minutes is like $100 bill just laying on the sidewalk and people are walking by and Rottweiler goes, hey, what's up with this? Hey, I just found $100, guys.
Thank you.
I can't believe that you guys have been doing this. I don't know, getting close to 10 years, right? You started.
I have been, 13 minutes itself, end of 2015. So I think we're right at that 7-year mark pretty quick.
Yeah. Okay. So you've been around a little while and it's like, wow. And Rottweiler, they're signing these great bands like Dispraised and you guys, Dispraised being, a great punk band in my opinion.
They are.
But I've seen your shows, on your live videos, and I could definitely see, well, I didn't see it in the videos, but in my head, I could definitely see circle pits forming in the crowd. You get a lot of that.
We do. It's interesting that you say that. Rottweiler does a great job of doing just that very thing. Most of us on the roster might be overlooked by some of the more mainstream labels, I think would be. I feel like Sean Browning, of course, the founder of Rottweiler, does a great job of looking for those hidden gems. And so we feel honored to be one of Sean's hidden gems. But yes, we have a great local and regional support here. We've had some amazing shows. I think with Sean, he got to come down. I've also been a promoter, and I've hosted Grave Robber, and as well as Soul Embraced, which was another Rottweiler actually and solid state band, Becoming Saints. So I had a great rapport just hosting Rottweiler bands to my shows here in this area. And so getting to know Sean through those endeavors, he got to see what was going on within our region. And he's like, yeah, I think I need to get these guys on my roster. So that in a nutshell is how we came to partner with Rottweiler.
That's awesome. I haven't heard one bad word about those guys over there from anybody. And I don't know. I just like a sticker. Maybe that's what I'm pushing for, Aaron. I just want a Rottweiler sticker to put on my computer. Can I have one? No.
I bet you we could do that.
I'm just playing. Not really, but yes. Anyways, no, you guys are. I was listening this morning and I went, where has 13 minutes been all my life? And I'm not pandering. I really feel that way because you got such a solid sound. I could totally see you doing these huge festivals like Rockville and Aftershock and stuff like that. You would fit in perfectly. And I just I don't know, man. Where's the climb next, I guess, is my question. What is the next step for 13 minutes?
Well, as I told you earlier, we're kind of in a rebuild phase. So I'm how can I word this politely of myself? I'm probably the hard person in the band to be with. I expect a lot out of my bandmates. And as we've been rebuilding, I'm not really opening the door to the stage until we're at a place where I feel like it looks like we never left. And so we've been off the stage for a couple years. A lot of what you hear with like this new single release with Jason of Death Therapy, and what's to come is really letting the world know that we're back. We went through a bit of you talk about the climb and the next level. What I have found through the course of all this is it's really hard to keep bandmates, man. You start getting into that business thing that you and I were talking about earlier. I think a lot of the shine leaves what we do and it becomes work. And a lot of musicians don't like to get into this place when it doesn't line out with what our dreams were, right? And I'm not trying to insult anybody. That I think that's a sobering reality for just about anybody that gets here. Is it doesn't stop when you get the record label. It doesn't stop whenever you release that first album. It's a continuous cycle that always requires a lot of yourself. And when you get to that place, you're left with a decision of, well, do I really want to keep going with this or not? And unfortunately, has been my case. It's been that thing where no, that shine just isn't worth the work anymore, and it's my time to bail and do something different. But God has been faithful. He said, well, hey, Jamie, I still called you. Remember seasons and remember that I'm your provider. And so he's always been faithful to send that next guy up. And also when you do that, it becomes, for me, it becomes a place where I'm like a road of faith. I'm like, well, I've learned a lot of lessons up to this place. Now with these new guys, I have a great opportunity to bring them in on the new lessons and help them along the way and give them a better platform as we move along to that next level. So that's where we're at right now, is growing these guys and helping them understand the expectations and the work that's to come as we prepare for our next album is actually really where we're at, and to get back on the live stage in 2023. We've had a lot of festival inquiries now that they know that we're back, and I'm like, well, we'll get when we're ready, which will be next year, then we're gonna blast off and we're gonna get back on that stage again. And I think everybody will be pleasantly surprised at the talent I have sitting in my rehearsal space.
Well, I certainly hope you make a West Coast run because I'm there. And maybe you can give me some backstage laminates or something, that'd be really
Where
cool.
are you guys located?
Sacktown.
Yeah, we're in Sacktown.
Sacktown. Okay, great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so you've talked about the fun of it. And I know when we started this thing a couple years ago, and we've been doing just the podcasting for now a little over a year, we said to ourselves, if this thing becomes a job and not fun, we're out.
Yeah.
But I tell you what, we've had a lot of fun, and God just keeps growing this thing.
Yeah, it's a slow build for us. There are times like last night where you go, oh, I got to do a show. I really don't want to do a show tomorrow. I don't have it in me. But then I wake up in the morning, I go, I'm ready to go, so a little rest and I'm back at it. By the way, as you're rebuilding the bands, maybe you take in applications. I play a mean cowbell. Okay.
Hey,
so just saying.
I was thinking Saturday Night Live skit. Or the Christopher Walken memes.
Yep. And I play tambourine too. So,
but do you play
triangle?
Okay,
and triangle. Yeah,
you're hired.
Yeah, I play a lot of instruments, man.
Hey, on the podcast, we're gonna play your song, the new one, "Obessed," the remix version.
Mm-hmm.
Can you just tell our audience a little bit about that song?
Yeah, well, it is a remix of the original found on the album. One of the great blessings of being where we've been over the last several years is the relationships that we've built along the way. And for me, the relationships are probably the greatest importance. I'm always reminded of John 13:35 says, "By this they'll know you're my disciples, by your love for one another." And so when we connect in a very deep and meaningful way with people, I feel like we really do represent God well in our community, and in this case, metal, rock. So the great part of that is we've been able to really meet a lot of great people along the way, and one of those people is Jason Wisdom. Now, for me, I'm gonna fanboy a little bit here. I will never forget the day that Jason called me. I was hosting an event called Serpent Stomp Festival. And I get a call from Jason. He goes, "Hey, this is Jason Wisdom of, you might have heard of me from a band called Becoming the Archetype." And I'm sitting there like, all right, I'm left with a choice here. Try to play it cool or be a really weird fanboy. So I was like, all right, yeah, I know who you are. And I try to play it really cool, but inside I was really fanboying. Like, Jason Wisdom is on my phone right now and he wants to play my show. And so Jason brought his new outfit at the time called Death Therapy to Serpent Stomp Festival, and I was just blown away. And so next morning, he and myself and T and Veronica from White Collar Sideshow all went out to breakfast at Denny's, and a friendship was born. And since that time, I've gotten to share a lot of stages with Jason, been on some mini tours, things like that, and gotten to know Jason the person. And I am still a fan. Trust me, I think Jason's mind and his talent is next to none. And as I was looking at what I could do to really get the word out that 13 Minutes was back, I'm like, well, what says me? One of those things is connection and relationship. I want to emphasize connection and relationship, but I don't, not just for the sake. I'm like, well, okay, how does that look? And what does that sound like? And I'm like, I need to get Jason in on this project. And so I called him up and said, "Hey, Jason, what would you think about working with me to remix a song?" He's like, "Dude, I'd love that. Thanks for asking me." I'm like, all right, well, that was the right choice. And away we went, using Jason's mind and intellect with the song Obessed, and out came the remix that you hear.
Wow. It's great. Let's do it here, Aaron.
Right now.
All right. It's the Rock Salt MUZKAST Experience. Rock Salt MUZKAST Experience. Aaron, Dave, and Jamie on Zoom, all the way from Tulsa, Oklahoma. Hey, I gotta ask, just because it's Oklahoma, you ever meet the Lion King or the Tiger King? You ever show up to a show?
What was so funny about that is when I never even knew until the show came out. And I'm like, well, how did I miss that? But no,
yeah.
I've
that
never
dude's
met
in my backyard. Get him out of here quick, baby. Where's the shotgun? You're in a little band called 13 Minutes out there on Rottweiler Records, and we sure do appreciate you spending some time with us today.
Oh, it's my pleasure.
we did I wrote it down because I always forget names. I wrote it down. Obsessed. Thank you. We did Obsessed back there, and I listened to the track for it without the lyrics. Fantastic.
Thank you.
I tell Aaron all the time, I'm looking for a band. They're really hard to find, and you'll know I'm right in this. A band that has the right mix of electronic and rock. And that was the right mix. That's exactly what I'm looking for, Aaron. That was the right mix, because without the singing in it, you can totally hear all these, everything going on in that song, and it's really cool. The other one that I loved, and I watched the video and everything, Who Told You? That's a straight up hit right there, brother.
Well, it's funny you mentioned that. It was our #1 on Christian Music Weekly charts, actually.
There you are. See, and it's got all the ingredients, as I say. I do want to know, what is being whispered and growled in the middle of the song there, because there wasn't a lyric video, and I don't know what he was saying. Something about a finger.
Signet ring on your middle finger. That's Michael writes in a lot of allegory. And so I'm going to be straight up. I did not always know where he was coming from, and I had to have much explained to me as well. Now I know basically the allegory behind the signet ring is, if I'm not mistaken, the prodigal son coming home, and when he got home, his father put the ring on his finger. So.
Gotcha.
Who told you is very much about the lies that we believe in culture, posing the question, who told you these things, and really a challenge to ponder the question and things that we're believing, that we're being told. Really test the spirit by the spirit, if you will.
Yeah, I mentor some young kids, and they'll tell me stuff, and I'm like, who told you that? And they'll tell me, and I go, stop listening to them.
Yeah, that's
stop listening to them right now.
This is going to be my new anthem, because I rail against media every day for lying to us. It drives me insane.
It's worth asking the question, who told you that, and are they a reputable source? And I love the scripture when he's talking, we battle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities and powers and rulers in the unseen realm. We believe we receive so many messages every day, and really it is our job to train ourselves to really critically think about those voices that are coming at us. And who told you really leans into that idea.
Yeah, it's a good song, man. It's a rocker for sure. I want to, give credit to the other guys in the band. Tell me who you got on helping you now. I mean, what's the current incarnation of 13 Minutes?
The current incarnation is Dave Ali on bass, Thomas Wheat on guitar and backing vocals, and then Jordan Harvey lead guitar, lead vocals.
And you're the drummer.
And I am the drummer.
Yeah. Aaron, this is how I knew that I was really into this band, was as I was watching Who Told You, and I started air drumming, and I was like, I'm hooked.
Funny you mentioned that, and I'll just kind of let that out there. Who Told You is going to be our second remix. So we are beginning the journey of really breaking it down again, and deciding also who our collaborator is going to be next. So we have if all works out, we're going to have a really nice surprise in store for people.
Oh, that sounds great. People don't realize how many hands are in the pot to make a great song, right? I mean, it's not just you writing the song or the band playing the song. There's like a lot of behind the scenes people that come up with this finished product, right?
Mm-hmm. Well, when we went into the studio, this was the first time, Obessed was the first time that any of us had ever worked with a producer. And so we came in with raw ideas, and basically we were admonished, listen, don't get too married to those ideas, because they're going to change. And that was very prophetic. Because, we had the raw materials, and I thank God that we had smart guys that were working with us to produce the album as well. It went through multiple levels before we got to a finished product. And honestly, I owe a major debt of gratitude to those other guys. And once I let go of my ego, and I realized that we were all on the same team working toward the same goal, and that's to create the best song that we could, everything became a lot more smooth sailing with it. So yeah, you're exactly right. There were a lot of fingerprints on those songs that are not just the guys performing them.
So were you married to any of the ideas? Did you take offense to, you know, hey, nobody likes this hook, and well, but I'm in love with this hook, and you know, God handed it down to me himself last night. So you know what I mean?
I personally, I went in because I knew the guy and I had a personal relationship with our producer before we went in, so I trusted him, whereas the other guys didn't really know him a whole lot. That being said, I felt like I was fighting for the new ideas a little bit more. You talk about, I think Fragile would be a great example. We went in there with, I'll tip my hand here and say, we went in with kind of almost a Project 86 vibe. And then we started adding these electronic elements to it. And then our guitarist at that time, he literally got angry at this idea that we were adding video game crap, as he called it, into the mix of our songs. And I was like, it was really that moment where I realized, okay, well, we better all get on the same page, or let our ego down, or find some solutions in the process. But when you share creativity with one another and with others, it's a very personal endeavor. So people get very, very committed to what they think it should be. And the goal is, as a unit now, is to find out where we can integrate all of our voices for that happy medium.
You know, I've been doing this. I was in radio for 17 years, and Aaron's a print guy. He's the producer of the show. Really, nothing happens without Aaron doing this. And it's the same thing. I come up with all these wild ideas and I just text them to him, and I'll get a one-word response. No. And then I'll go, what do you mean? It's my show. I'll do what I want to do. And this is all the stuff that I'm saying before I text back. And then I text back, okay.
It kind of works that way when you're working with a team. You know, it's you have to really come to that conclusion where we are all in this together, and learning how to value the other guys, whether they're playing the instrument, whether they're producing, whether it's your executive producer, whatever the case may be, just learning how to value their voices as well as your own. So I think that's the secret sauce in all of it.
And am I wrong? Is that where a lot of the tension in a band, when they start to disband, or, you know, members walk away or just lose interest in the band? Because there's a lot of unsigned bands that we've talked to where people just, you know, life took them a different direction and they lost interest. Well, is that where a lot of that comes in, and is in the, you know, the mix?
I think so, in my experience anyway. I'll backtrack just a little bit. And I alluded to, we had a vocalist before Michael. We were in the studio in 2015. It was basically the band that transitioned to the moniker 13 Minutes. And this was about the time we had started talking to Rottweiler in late 2014, entered the studio in 2015 with a different vocalist. And the guy that we were working with at that time set us all down before we ever started. And he said, I'm going to tell you this: the studio is going to show you who you are and who you are not. And most bands don't make it out. And I was like, yeah, whatever. And I'm going to tell you, by the end of that cycle, I was the first one to blow. And so I by the end of 2015, I'd had enough at the direction of where it was going. I was the one that first to go, and the other guys, they ran after me and they said, Jamie, you ain't leaving. And I'm like, well, we got some work to do then, fellas, before we do this again. And so we started answering some questions before we went in to begin work on Obessed. And I think it was still very hard. Let me not lie. It was a hard process, but I think we because of the prior experience, we were a little bit more prepared as we worked on that album.
Yeah, that's one of the things that I notice as the progression. I mean, there's not a whole lot of the progression on Spotify for you guys, but there's a little bit of the progression there that I can hear in the music, where you can clearly tell what is not the older music, not because it's bad, but just because of the production qualities of it versus the newer stuff, where you go, wow, this is really clean and crisp, and I can hear that bass line and all, you know, that sort of thing.
I agree 100%. I'd be curious, what do you think the first song was that we recorded?
I'm really bad with names. I have to write everything down and look at it because I don't remember. So now I'm pulling up your Spotify. Let's see. Well, the first one I heard was the Obessed remix. But I'm going to say like something like Reckless Love, but that's your newer stuff.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, sibling rivalry, right?
Sibling, right? Okay, that's here I'm looking down
at first single.
That's here you go. You have Water Vice is one of the older ones. I'm sorry, I didn't listen to all of it this morning. I was watching your YouTube videos, and that was the thing. You were a live band. I'm totally getting off track here. You're a live band because I was listening to your Spotify, and then I switched over and I said I want to see these guys, and the videos that I saw live, I was hooked.
I think that was always our strength. There's so much you do live that is really, really hard to capture in the studio. And I've always told, it doesn't matter how much we float off into the electronic land or anything. If we can't be a live band, it's not worth doing to me. And so, yeah, I live for those moments. Once again, back to connection. For me, it matters that we have a moment of solidarity when we're at a live show. Give the people who support us something to grab a hold on to, whatever they're dealing with that day, to make their day better. And so for me, the live place is where it's at.
Yeah. Jamie, if you can see here, our other partner here, Patrick.
He's having some Fruity Pebbles or something over there.
Eating whatever he's listening. So we just, he's not someone who hijacked the link. He's our other guy.
He's our rabid fan.
Man.
One of the questions I did have for you before I go over socials and all that is when Rottweiler has really helped you in rebuilding the band, for lack of a better term, right? You're restructuring the band. They've introduced you to people and stuff. Do you ever feel like Rottweilers is saying, oh, well, we want you to talk to this guy, and that kind of means we want you to sign this guy with your band? I get the feeling that they're not that kind of label, but doesn't there have to be some kind of a meshing with you guys for everything to work? I mean, does that person really have to fit not just the band, but the group of people?
Yes. And honestly, no, Rottweiler in the way they have helped has been more on the encouragement and the spiritual. Short story, Sean Browning, the founder of Rottweiler Records, is also a pastor. He's the pastor of the Gathering Church in Fort Wayne, Indiana. So he's got a great pastor's heart. And recently he sold it now to Jairus, I'm going to pronounce it Pascali. I've always called him Jairus. Yes, but he owns Mythic Panda down in Dallas, Texas. So he's the new owner of Rottweiler Records. But my relationship for most of my tenure here has been with Sean Browning. And I mean, I don't like to air too much dirty laundry, but some of the things that I've had to encounter in trying to keep a band together and be the men that we say we are things like I got a message from a wife that one of my band members was caught in infidelity. So I how do you handle that? This is your friend, this is a person that you do love. This is a pretty heinous situation that just got dropped in your lap. And if we were a different kind of band, I guess we could overlook it and say, hey, not a big deal. But for somebody like us and the people we profess to be, that is kind of a big deal. And I'm like, well, what do I do now? Kind of deal, like, what are my next steps? I've never had to encounter this before. And that's where Sean Browning has been like amazing. Being able to bounce my thoughts, my ideas, receive spiritual counsel from somebody who doesn't just care about the fact that you play an instrument, but cares about you as a human being. And so that's really where Sean and Rottweiler have been absolutely vital and valuable to who we are as an entity, as 13 Minutes. Now, fast forward, I told you we've been off the circuit for a couple years. We the three members that really did work the hardest to mobilize this realized that, once again, it's still great fun, make no mistake, but this is not, this is hard work to be able to mobilize and stay true to what you're doing, and be the man of integrity to take care of home business, to keep it all in balance and still produce and present a professional band is very difficult. And I think sometimes you get to a place where your emotional energy just is not there anymore. And so we had come to a crossroads at one point where my other two compadres that were my co-founder, Aaron Smith, and then the vocalist that you heard, Michael Rowley, we were just in a place where life was taking us in different directions, and those directions needed attention. And I'm still sitting here like, I still love this thing. So what do I do now? Kind of deal. And Sean came in and he says, why don't you carry it on? I'm like, well, I'm the drummer, I know I've co-founded the band, but I'm the drummer. Is the drummer allowed to carry this thing on? I don't sing, I don't play guitar, I'm not really the primary focus of the sound. So I wasn't really honestly confident that I had the right to carry on the band, knowing it was going to sound different. And Sean sat me aside and he basically said, Jamie, he goes, I was there when it started. I watched the work. I know who moves the wheels. You need to keep going. And I'm like, well, if you believe that I can, then who am I to believe that I can't? And so that really is the short end of the story. But it really was Rottweiler Records that said, you got more in the tank. Don't quit yet. Get it back together, and we got you.
Well, question for you real quick, Jamie. I know I'm coming in late, just as I normally don't do. But how going back to those issues that you had to handle? We're in the we're coming up on the end of our season, and there's going to be some, as I like to call, some restructuring. So how did you handle those situations? And I mean, I know how I'll handle it, which will be biblically. But there's also those unknowns when you're just like, when you catching shots left and right, and what kind of fallout did you experience? Or, I mean, anything that I should be have on my radar for when I restructure.
I appreciate you asking the question. I really do. And you know what? I wasn't sure how I actually, you're not the first one to reach out and ask similar questions. So I'm like, okay, God, I see what you're doing here. I will say that for me, there's no easy way. I wish I could say there was. There are going to be people when you have to make a firm decision about certain things that are going to be unhappy with you. Now, if you've prayed about it, if you sought the Lord's guidance, if you are completely convicted, mobilizing and that love that Paul expresses in Corinthians, the fruits of the Spirit, you are making your decisions with the sound and firm spiritual understanding that this is right. Not out of pride, not out of arrogance, not out of anything but the concern for another person. I don't think you can go wrong. I really don't. I'm not saying everybody's going to be happy, but I am saying that if you posture yourself, go ahead.
A few years ago, I set everybody down and I was like, listen, if our hearts and our minds are not right, we will never be promoted any further than this basement. We may go out, we may play some cool shows, may meet some awesome people, we might do some really good, cool things, but we'll never be promoted any further. And this was 2 years ago. And I feel like the time is up to where, and just some things, and I'm just so heavily convicted. The only reason that I'm doing the last 2 shows of the year is because I'm a man of my word, and I told people we would be there.
There you go. And that's important too.
If it wasn't for that, I would have cut it at the beginning of the year. I would have cut it 6 months ago, but we have obligations and I want to be there for those. But again, it's just, it's a tough road to tread, like you're saying.
It is. Well, it sounds to me like you prayed about it. You haven't made any decisions in haste. I think the conviction, it sounds to me that it remains. And when that conviction remains, you've got to address it. If you don't, you're right. I mean, it's not going anywhere. You're going to hit a stalemate, and it's not good for any of you. It's not good for any of you. And for as sucky as it feels, and it does, make no mistake, none of this was done with any glee on my end and having to make some of the harder decisions. I look back, especially now with a little bit of breathing time, and say I wouldn't have done it any different. There were certain decisions I had to make for another person because they wouldn't have made it on their own.
Right.
I don't feel in any way that I made the decision in haste, and I don't believe it was wrong. Then there are some people, for instance, I'll just say my co-founder came in, since we started running this thing together, he's brought 2 little kids into the world. Man, life happens, and you don't think it will before you become a parent, but life happens whether you want it to or not. And that season of being dad, which is far more important than what we do, in my humble opinion, needs to be completely immersive right now with your little girls growing up. Right. The time to be out on the road and for any extended period of time is just not there. And he knew it, and it was causing, the Bible says a double-minded man is unstable in all his ways. And so being double-minded doesn't do you good for your family. It doesn't do you good for the band. It doesn't do good for yourself. And so make the decision to do the right thing.
Yeah, I've already come to the understanding that I would rather lose everything that God has allowed me to build than continue on with a limp, if that makes any sense.
I 100%. I feel that statement with everything that I am. So I'm in agreement with you. And when are you going to make? I mean, you don't have to tell me, but when are you planning on really addressing it?
It's going to be mid-August. After our last show. Our last show is somewhere in Ohio on the 13th of August. And so the week after that, we're going to have the big sit down meeting. But so now that we've had this conversation, I can just say, well, Jamie from 13 Minutes told me.
Well, dude,
let me go. This has been a great conversation. And I hope those are maybe listening that are not in a band or whatever. You may have a friendship you need to part with, because they're bringing you down, or you need to have an uncomfortable conversation of what you're doing is wrong in the eyes of the Lord and for your family and all that. So hopefully those listening can apply what we're talking about too, also to other areas in their life, to really make them, line up with the Word of God.
Well, Patrick, and you're absolutely right. I just want to say this before I forget, Patrick, your meeting with the rest of your bandmates might be accelerated now. Well,
hey,
might be happening mid-July.
You guys are welcome to grab me on my socials if I can help in any way. And I'm not saying that I offer a whole lot, but even if I can just offer my experience and it helps in any way, by all means, grab me, guys. That's kind of why we're in communion with one another. It's back to that connection that I so fervently believe in. We all have different stories. We all have different journeys, and we all have valuable information, valuable connection, whatever you want to call it, that we can provide with another. And if I can share my story, and make no mistake, my intent will never be to dismiss or diminish anybody that I played music with. But I've been doing this long enough to know that roadways, they splinter and they part ways. And when you're in this thing called music that's so personal, it's really difficult to understand sometimes which way is right to go and how much grace to extend, and at the end of the day, no 2 bands are the same. You really have to address it occurrence by occurrence and pray for God's guidance in the midst of it, because God may have another idea than yourself. And so far be it from you to act in a very black and white scenario when God's saying it's not quite that. That's not where we're going this time, bud. So, and if I can help in any way, I mean, what's mine is yours. By all means, reach out.
Yep. So how can they find you on social media, out on the internet? 13 Minutes on Instagram, Facebook?
Instagram and Facebook. You will typically be talking to me on Instagram and Facebook. Okay. But if you're a YouTube person, YouTube is out there. Jordan has got his Twitch channel up. He does guitar demos and has fun out on Twitch. I don't touch it. That's all his ball game. Let's see, Rottweiler Records. Wherever you see the Rottweiler symbol, you'll find information about us. Go listen to us on Spotify if that's your jam. I am not anti-Spotify. In fact, I have a son who has taught me the wonders of Spotify and where people are really immersing themselves in music. So I'm very pro Spotify. So go out there.
Obi-Wan Kenobi, I need your help.
Hey, we're gonna play Sibling Rivalry on our MUZKAST version. Can you just kind of intro that? Tell us a little bit about it and intro that.
Yes, Sibling is one of our early songs, actually. It was released, I think it was our first digital 45 that we dropped when we were out at Audio Feed Festival for the first time. But it is the classic story of Cain and Abel. It's timeless, it's transcendent, and we just kind of added our little 2 cents about the story itself into song.
Nice.
Good.
Thanks for coming on the show, Jamie.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Here's
Yeah, my pleasure, fellas.
Here's 13 minutes on the Rock Salt MUZKAST experience.